Diner buzzes with clinking dishes, chatter, and laughter. A trembling veteran enters, back bent. Each step carried the weight of history. Laughter began spreading through the room. Faking a limp for a discount? Who invited this old actor? The fork slipped from his hand. No one moved. Not a single sympathetic glance. Then, a man in a Marine uniform stood up. He said nothing. Just walked over, picked up the fork, and stood at attention behind the veteran. That moment silenced the entire diner, and one of the most powerful veteran stories was continued at Justice for Veterans. Frank Delaney, 78 years old, former U.S. Marine, wounded in a helicopter crash in Vietnam. Every Sunday for 12 years, he arrived at Molly's Diner 7, 0 a.m. sharp. Hard-boiled eggs, 2 burnt toast slices, and black coffee. Though his back was curved and hands unsteady, he never asked anyone to carry his tray. "A soldier stands on his own," he once told Ellie, the waitress. A frail silhouette, walking steady through indifferent glances. Frank didn't come for attention. But that day, everyone had to look. Doctors had once told him he'd never walk again. His spine shattered in 1972, but he trained to stand, to walk. With a wooden cane and iron will, every step his body resisted. His hand trembled. The tray shook violently. Still, he moved forward. To him, independence wasn't a choice. It was honor. He placed his tray down slowly, breathed quietly. No one saw the pain under his shirt. No one saw the war keeping him awake at night. What weighed most wasn't the injury, it was the silence he lived with. Chairs scraped. A burst of mocking laughter came from the boys' table nearby. Frank was walking to his seat when a voice rang out. "If you can't carry a tray, stay home, old man." Trying to cosplay a Marine? That time's long gone. Laughter faded slowly. Frank didn't react. He quietly placed his tray. Bet he's faking for a discount. No one spoke. No one stood up. Eyes dropped to coffee cups, pretending not to hear. Frank endured. Not because he was weak, but because he was used to being alone. The room went quiet. Only a distant clatter remained. Then a fork hit the floor. Metal on tile, sharp and clear. Frank bent down. Slowly, painfully. His body trembled, resisting the weight of memory. Heavy breaths, joints strained. No hands reached out. Only curious glances, or people turning away. Worn boots under the table. His head nearly to the floor. It wasn't just a fork, it was a man's dignity, falling in front of a silent crowd. Then someone walked toward him. All noise stopped. Only wind brushed the window. A soft piano played in the distance. From the corner, a man in a Marine Corps uniform stood up. He walked, silent, deliberate. Eyes followed him as he passed. Frank remained bent, struggling with the fork. Boots echoed on tile. The Marine picked up the fork, placed it back on the table, then stood at attention behind Frank. Back straight. Eyes ahead. Hands at his sides. No one understood. But no one spoke. They had seen something no one dared dismiss. Frank still bowed. He didn't know that behind him, someone stood, like saluting a flag. No chairs scraped. No spoons clinked. Only silence, thick and still. The boys froze. Josh stared into his coffee, fists clenched. Tyler looked around, mouth tight, no more laughter. Ellie stood, check in hand, eyes moist. No one spoke. But all eyes now looked at Frank differently. Then, the Marine spoke. The man in uniform took out a photo from his chest pocket. He raised it toward the diner. The man in this photo is him. A heartbeat echoed softly. In the photo, a bloodied young soldier carrying a comrade through fire. Frank Delaney. In 1972, he carried me 3 miles under enemy fire, while bleeding from a wound down to his boots. Ellie froze. The boys held their breath. No one had known. Frank had never told, never bragged, never wanted attention. No more mocking eyes, no more noise, only regret. A chair shifted slowly. Josh walked forward, avoiding Frank's gaze. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Frank looked at him. No anger, no words, just calm. Honor needs no speeches, but today, I must say thank you. Ellie placed a hand on Frank's shoulder. A few apologies can't erase pain, but they begin change. From the back office, a middle-aged man emerged. George Mathers, owner of Molly's Diner. He held a small remote. I saw everything on the security cameras. A quiet beep. On screen. Frank bending down. The Marine standing tall behind him. George looked around, then turned to Frank. Sergeant Frank Delaney. With your permission, this table now bears your name. A soft click. A plaque placed gently. Sergeant Frank Delaney's table. Below it, a black and white photo. A soldier carrying a generation. 1 week later, Molly's Diner opened again. This time the boys came back. No laughter, no jokes. Josh approached the name table. He placed a hand on Frank's shoulder. My dad was a soldier. That day, I felt ashamed. Frank looked at the three. He nodded slowly. No quick forgiveness, but no rejection. Next time, sit with me before you laugh behind me. Music lifted softly. Glasses clinked. Chairs pulled out. The boys sat beside him. The table was no longer empty. From that day on, Frank's table wasn't just a seat, it became a symbol. Ellie now wore a Marine pin on her apron. A gift from Frank, his way of saying thank you back. A soft click. A laugh at his table. Every Sunday, strangers stopped to greet him. Some veterans, others, just people who now understood gratitude. No speeches, no ceremonies, just one small table, and an old man who once stood quietly to teach others how to sit right. Frank rarely talked about the past. War memories stayed hidden like old scars. But now, beside his name table, he began to share. About a night in Khe-Sanh, when Eddie Lambert was hit, about carrying him 3 miles through the jungle while feeling nothing below his waist. Fire crackled quietly. Memories surfaced. Ellie listened. Josh bowed his head. An old man at the next table whispered, Eddie Lambert was my uncle. That day, they touched a living thread of history they thought had vanished. Frank never yelled, never slammed the table, never burst with rage. Even though he carried more than most ever would, he didn't romanticize war. He simply lived and walked with dignity. Soft tap of cane. Tick, tick. A fork fell. A Marine stood. And the entire diner learned a lesson no school had ever taught. Courage isn't loud. It's when you stand, right when it matters, and say nothing at all. Frank Delaney never asked for honor, never needed fame. He only asked for respect. And sometimes, one man rising silently can begin healing a lifetime of neglect. At Justice for Veterans, we believe no veteran should sit alone, surrounded by apathy. If you've ever seen a Frank in real life, don't walk away. Stop, look them in the eye, and say 2 words. Thank you. If you believe sacrifice deserves to be remembered, share this video, and follow Justice for Veterans because respect should never come too late.